latest novella that's coming out, Solo Down. If anyone would like to buy it, wink, wink. You can talk to me, I guess, at some point tonight. All you really need to know about this story is transgenetic experimentation and telekinetic communication. Okay. The first bomb threat was called in. The phone rang in the staff room, which had never happened before, and because AMC had just sanitized and suited up, she knocked on the glass partition separating the lab from the decontamination room and waved for Jin, her lab partner, to answer it. She turned back to her pipettes, to the cells inside them, and after a while Jin reappeared at the window, the strangest expression on his face. On a piece of paper pressed against the glass, he'd written, "Bomb in the bathroom." Amesy had to turn away then because the sign made her hands shake, and hands holding a fragile glass vial and the contents within even more fragile, and shaking hands in a genetic laboratory are precursors to disaster. A few minutes later, another knock. Jin's pushed his sweaty black hair back from his forehead, and he is holding a new sign. False alarm. But both were very alarmed. Amesy capped the vial, set it in the centrifuge, and pressed the green button to set it all spinning. She walked calmly through decon, removed her paper booties and hairnet, ever careful to turn these items inside out before disposal and incineration, and still managed to make it to the sink in the staff room kitchen before vomiting efficiently and cleanly down the drain. Jin watched from the corner while she wiped her mouth before casually suggesting in not so casual a tone that they call it a day and clock out early. The laboratory compound where they worked was constructed beyond the town's western border. Originally, the laboratory was used to develop vaccines. Even now, with 60 years of homogenized suburban sprawl creeping steadily toward it, the main building was more than 50 miles from its closest neighbor. Enough time to evacuate the town's residents in case of a catastrophic emergency, enough distance to isolate an explosion within its walls. At one time, sun shone through plate glass windows in the front and rear, but these were bricked many years before Amesy was hired on as head scientist of biogenetic research and development, long before her children were born. Seeing old photographs, some might describe the grounds as cheerful. There were old pines bordering the front walkway. There was a statue in the lobby of Jonas Salk administering a polio vaccine to a child swaddled in his arms. At one time, more than 300 people were employed there, and knowing this, Amesy feels odd and slightly off-kilter, knowing that it is only her and Jin in so many empty rooms, so many abandoned lab stations. There was another bomb threat the following week, and the week after that, all bomb, no threat. Amesy was 4 months pregnant, but looked nearly full-term as a result of carrying twins. From the moment his fetal hands became capable, Mendel would thrash through the liquid, stained red space of his mother's tight womb and attempt to strangle his sister. More often than not, she was able to slip from his clutches, but occasionally he would grab hold of her cord and clamp down tight, and she would kick out in defense, and Amesy would interpret the activity as a dissatisfied reaction to whatever she'd eaten last. After their fracas, Astrid would comfort herself by vigorously suckling the edge of her bud-furled fist. She would grasp for sleep amid the rattling snare drum of her own wild and fearful heartbeat, so loud it was impossible to hear her mother's beating above them. Sometimes Amesy would tuck down toward her center, bending to open a deep freezer or to retrieve some skittering pen, and Astrid would push herself up towards her mother's heart and anchor herself to its steady grip. Mendel paid these moments no notice, disconnected from his maternal host in every way but umbilically. When a keen and intimate understanding of danger predates death, it's enough to alter the systems of one's mind irrevocably. Before breathing consciousness, Nestled in the amniotic ether, all speckled with cellular dust, Astrid learned what it was to feel afraid, and how right it was to feel afraid of her brother's close proximity. Astrid waited a whole extra day before following Mendel through the birth canal. She slept alone and motionless in the empty embrace of her mother's vacant womb, and she sponged whatever resources remained after Mendel had taken his miser's portion. And when she finally emerged, she came curled defensively, startled by the slightest stimulus, forcing her delicate newborn eyes to open prematurely against the blinding hospital light, piqued as she was in anticipation of his attack. No one beaten inside the womb sleeps easily ever after. Infantile brutality without witness, and with no one to confirm or condemn what he'd done to her. Astrid had no defense against her brother, and because the heavy-handed attacks began with their very existence and with such calculated force, it was many years before Astrid understood that such violence on Mendel's part was anything out of the ordinary. His mind a conduit, he transmitted sharp, zinging pinches, aiming and landing them wherever he wished to upon her tiny body. Their mother's accident in the lab had changed Mendel's brainwaves, the way his tissued lobes and folds expressed his mind, that strange and intangible meeting place. The baby boy took his cognition beyond the abiding edge of understanding or interpretation. His mind moved to action. He shot mental lightning bolts of impulsive thought, and Astrid was his only lightning rod, her body a vessel to be filled and controlled. Acting of its own accord, nature bent Mendel's constitution towards aggression, toward angry outbursts and violent inclination. He would not allow himself to be nurtured, spurned affection, even softly focused eye contact, at every opportunity by way of animalistic screams set to detonate at the slightest gesture of tenderness. Their mother's accident had changed Mendel down to his very chemicals, but he was built to be evil. The accident, the way it changed him, only encouraged the evil, the well-rooted evil, to bloom. He practiced on her for years, and eventually Mendel mastered the transmission of his sinister dreams. At 6, Astrid began keeping a journal. Its cover decorated with glittery butterflies, seemingly innocuous, perhaps charming in the way that possessions of little girls are charming. Its contents were the written evidence of Mendel's unseen violations. Without the words to express it, Astrid knew she was keeping an unnatural account, that someday he might go too far, and she would have to have what was written down in order to explain where it all had started, to illustrate the depth of his sickness. She writes, "Mendel's in my head again. He's sleeping, dreaming in the locked room with no windows so that he can't get out. It's bad when he gets out. His dreams are so loud. He dreams of fire and boiling rock and black water and animals screaming all around, and his dreams are ripping, slicing, tearing, shredding, stabbing. He sends them to me. They glint like a blade behind my eyes, so I keep my eyes open and safe from the knife. Mendel's in my head, but at least he's not talking to me there, not yet. When he does, he talks about things we shouldn't know about, things we should never see. He tells me about what he's going to do to our nurse Edie if she ever turns her back on him while he's unlocked. He tells me what he'll do to me if I ever tell anyone what he tells me. I don't want anything bad to happen to Edie. She's the only person who loves us after Mother, and she might even love us more because she's with us more often than Mother is. Edie makes my breakfast and blends Mendel's with his vitamins and keeps his feeding tube clean and clear, holding it up and out so that it all gets in. She irons my school clothes and does art projects with me and tightens the straps around Mendel's arms just the way he likes it so that he won't thrash or shriek. She talks to him calmly even when he's scary, like when he tries to bite his tongue off and spit his blood at her. Tonight, Mendel dreams of a place we've never been, a dark house with dark people inside and angry music like shattering glass flying at us from every direction. needles and bare mattresses and people on the floor and naked screaming babies almost every night, always the screaming babies. She slaps the journal closed and tucks it under her mattress as Mendel wakes from his medicated sleep and screams out for Edie to come and change him. Astrid doesn't wait for Edie to poke her head in and ask if she'll come and help with her brother's restraints. This is his favorite time to bite her. Instead, she slinks down the hall like a shadow of a cat and guns for the backyard, the safety of the park beyond, where she can be alone in her mind for just a minute, maybe more, if she's lucky. Thank you.